guys, what's up? It's Morgan and Angie with The Shift, and today we are talking about, do you see the divide happening? And so right now with this political climate the way it is, it's scary, and there's a lot of intensity around the arguments and what right versus wrong and what's going on, and it's just a very tumultuous environment, and it's hard, and there's a lot of divide happening over it, and it's unfortunate. And Ange and I were talking about it this morning, and very much our heart is drawn toward love and acceptance and unity, and that's where our heart goes to in this moment especially. And yeah, so we wanted to talk about that, and Angie, you can share some thoughts, and then if you want to read that passage from Glennon Doyle's book, that would be awesome.
Okay, we'll get us started from here. So this is Glennon Doyle's book, and it's called Untamed, and this is the chapter on decals, she calls it. When I was a young mother, exhausted, isolated, and dripping with children, I got a postcard from a local church offering free babysitting during the service. My then husband and I attended the following Sunday and found coffee, breakfast, music, and nursery inspiring speakers and welcoming couples everywhere. This church had identified every challenge in a young family's life and fixed them all for an hour. It felt like heaven at first. And then one Sunday, the preacher started discussing the sins of homosexuality and abortion as if they were the pillars upon which this church was built. My insides caught fire. After the service, I contacted the preacher and set up a meeting. I asked him, why, if your church is based on the Jesus who spoke incessantly about orphans and widows, demilitarization, immigrants, the sick, the outcast, and the poor, are you choosing abortion and gayness to hang your hat upon? After many circular arguments, he looked at me, sighed, and smiled. He said, you're a smart woman, and what you say makes sense in the ways of the world. But God's ways are not our ways. You must not lean on your own understanding. You seem to have a good heart, but the heart is fickle. Faith is about trusting. Do not think, do not feel, do not know. Mistrust your own heart and mind and trust us. That is faith. He wanted me to believe that trusting him was trusting God. But he was not my connection to God. My heart and my mind were my connections to God. If I shut those down, I'd be trusting the men who led this church instead of trusting God. I'd be relying on their understanding. The thing that gets me thinking and questioning most deeply is a leader who warns me not to think or question. I won't passively outsource my faith and my children's faith to others. I am a mother, and I have responsibilities to all children, not just my own. When hate or division is being spread in our religious institutions, we have three choices. 1, remain quiet, which means we agree. 2, loudly challenge power and work like hell to make change. Or 3, take our families and leave. But there is no more silently disagreeing while poison is being pumped from pulpits and seeping beneath our children's skin. Wow, she says a lot. And I believe that what she is saying there really epitomizes what Morgan and I are all about. And that is about trusting ourselves and questioning and thinking for ourselves. And we are encouraging you to do the same and to ask yourself this. I did a talk on this years ago, and it was very well received. And the message, Morgan, was, is this coming from love or is this coming from fear?
Yeah.
And so that's a wonderful filter for us when we are seeing so many dividing lines being created in the sand, like Republicans versus Democrats, blacks versus whites, gays versus non-gays, whatever. There's so many lines being drawn and dividing. This is the divide that is happening, because when you can divide, you can conquer. So the question then becomes, well, who's conquering? Who's trying to conquer America? We won't go into that today because I'll leave that up to you to decide. But one thing is clear. We need to have unity. We need unity. When we walk away from a social media post and we feel slammed or shamed or judged, is that fear or is that love? It's obviously fear. And when we speak certain things to the world and we leave that conversation and we feel constricted and shut down, that is fear. And so we're saying here, let's look at things from a place of self-trust in our heart, in our gut. Is what we are hearing, does it make sense? And if we will apply that filter of love versus fear to everything, then we can start to create unity again as a country, as a nation, as a world. So I'll get off my soap opera.
Angie, thank you for sharing that. This passage from this book was very near to my heart just because I did feel like growing up there was this tendency to want to give my power away of decision making to authority figures, right? And it's one of the craziest things, and there's this security in it of like, well, I trust this person, so they probably have a good opinion and that's worth trusting. Right. And it comes from a good intention, but it also comes from a place of a lack of trust. And we continue to perpetuate that lack of trust when we constantly put other people's opinions above our own. True. And then we never really feel like we can make good decisions in our life because we feel like we don't really know what's going on, or we don't have the authority to make such a claim. And ultimately, Angie and I are advocates for trusting your heart, trusting your own knowing, trusting that you know the situation in your life better than anyone else, and trusting that no matter what you decide, that you are going to make the best out of that situation. A lot of times we get paralyzed in indecision because we're afraid we're going to make the wrong choice. Right. And so we just get stuck and we're like, oh, I'm just not even going to make a decision. And ultimately, it's not so much a right versus a wrong. It's much more gray than we make it out to be in our minds, because the truth is when we make a decision, whether it's right or wrong, that just leads us to another decision, and we just keep making decisions, and there's no necessarily right or wrong path. Right. Maybe in the sense that we've thought of before. At least that's how I kind of was like, oh, if I make a wrong decision, all is lost. It's like, no, life is not that black and white. Thank goodness. Because a lot of times we don't know if a decision was, quote, wrong until after we make it. And that's okay, right? And so I think the important thing here is to remember that we want to perpetuate love and unity, validating everyone, letting everyone feel like they're okay to think the way that they're thinking.
That's right. And that's right.
We don't have to agree with everyone. Everyone's got a different perspective, and that's okay. They have it for a reason. And it's whether it's based on their experience or their research, we can choose to be respectful, and we can choose to encourage love and peace no matter what we do.
Should I read that little quote from this book called Advancing Star? Sure. Because this is really in alignment with what our tip is for you today, that to choose love over fear. And when we feel the need to defend ourselves, or we feel that shame response, like, oh my gosh, they're calling me a racist. Okay, we don't want to go into all of that right now, but there's a lot of that going on. And when we feel that shame response bubble up inside of us, to know that that's a fear response. It's not who we really are, and I know you and I, Morgan, like our heart is to help other people to be their best, to be their most trusting, loving self-advocate, right? That's our heart. And we don't need to read other people's opinions in order to decide that about us, because we know who we are, right?
Yeah.
And we want that the same for everybody, to feel confident enough in their soul, to the soul level, who they are, that they don't have to they don't have to refer to, oh, well, what is she thinking? Because I'm guilty of that. I read other books, but even the most enlightened thinkers out there, they have biases, and as do we. Like, we have biases. We don't even see them probably on some level. But
Yeah.
one thing you can know about me and Morgan is that we will keep digging, and we'll keep questioning ourselves. Like, does that feel right? Or is there something off here? Am I coming from love or fear? And then that can guide us back to our centered self, whatever you want to call that.
Yeah.
Any comment before I read the quote?
No, go for it.
The quote is from Archibald MacLeish, and it's, love becomes the ultimate answer to the ultimate human question. Love becomes the ultimate answer to the ultimate human question. And this was my quote for the day, which had a bookmark. So I thought it was perfectly appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, as you're going about how to handle this situation and how to navigate these conversations with people that maybe you don't agree with, just ask yourself, how can I spread more love in what I'm doing? How can I spread more unity? How can I spread more acceptance? And if that's what you're trying to do from your heart, you really can't go wrong. Because I think your intention matters so much more than what anyone else's opinion of you ever is. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please comment down below your thoughts about how you give your power away and how you maybe are ready to stop. It's so easy to give our power away to people who we think we look up to, but ultimately no one is perfect. No one is bulletproof. No one is flawless. And the beauty in that means that you can trust yourself and you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be flawless. So send you guys our love. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. This has been Morgan and Angie with The Shift, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Bye.